Hey everybody, this is Dr. Craig with AI, and I'm delighted to have Gotham here with us, who's the founder of Enlighten AI. Good morning.
Thanks for having me, Craig. Great to be with you.
Oh, it's fantastic. And I'm delighted because you are a real teacher who's designed a real solution to one of our ongoing challenges with time management and getting stuff done in schools. Why don't you tell us about the origin story of Gotham and what you have been doing prior to AI?
Yeah, absolutely. I was a lifelong teacher and educator. So I've been in schools for the last 15 years. I graduated from college here in the Bay Area and then immediately went to teach nearby in Richmond, California, which is historically underserved neighborhood, tough little city, but a great city. And I got to work at an excellent school where we're really driving outsized results for students. And I sort of imagined in my mind's eye what it might look like to make more of those types of opportunities available to students in the community because we could have, filled our school up, two or three times over with just the students on the wait list.
Mm.
Um, and so I wrote in my graduate school essays that I wanted to come back to Richmond and found an excellent school and actually had the opportunity to do that. So I came back and founded Invictus Academy of Richmond, and founded, designed, and led it for 6 years. So it
Wow.
probably took 10 or 15 years off of my life. It's an extremely intense process from start to finish, but the school is doing really well, and we just celebrated our graduating class. So that was this quick story of the last 15 years of my life.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a really surreal moment.
If you could look back and someone was saying to you, what's one thing I really need to keep in mind when founding, establishing a school? What would you say to them as one thing they really have to keep in mind?
If they want to found a school, they need to keep in mind that their tolerance for pain must be extremely high. Um, I mean, the way that journey really begins is just you starting with an idea, and
Mm,
um, there's a lot of no's and closed doors along the way. We were
mm,
rejected at the district level based on political reasons. Um, it was difficult to find a building. You're on street corners, talking to families and going to community events and recruiting, students. It's not glamorous work. At some point, you'll take out the trash, you'll clean up puke.
mm,
Um, Founding sometimes has this glamour to it, and founding a school, founding a company, I think, is similar in that way, in that you really need to be able to do just about every job, and your tolerance for no's, rejections, um, doubt, fear, all needs to be pretty high. Which at times it's a really harrowing journey, but in the end, uh, you get to experience immense gratification of service. And so I wouldn't change it, though I also have deep respect for how difficult that journey is.
mm. You sound like the David Goggins of education.
I think that I think that the folks that are in schools that are teaching and leading are the David Goggins
Yeah,
of of education. That is exactly right.
awesome. What do you tell us about Enlighten AI and what was the moment and what happened where you decided this is what you need to do next?
It's a great question because I don't think there was a particular moment, but the product and tool is really born out of some personal pain from when I was a teacher and then as a school leader. And so when I was a teacher, in the history of my school, almost no students had ever passed the advanced placement exam in US history. 90% of students earned ones, which is the lowest score that you can get on the exam. So that's what you get for writing your name on the test. And so I was determined to change that. But pretty quickly, I realized why that was. And it was because part of the AP exam was you have to write a document-based historical analysis essay in 60 minutes. So you have 15 minutes to read some rigorous historical documents and 45 minutes to compose an essay. So you not only need to know your stuff, but you need to be able to put those thoughts into the structure extremely efficiently. Like you or I today would still have trouble to do in doing one of these types of assignments. But at the same time, if you can meet that bar of rigor, then you've achieved something really special and probably put yourself on the path to and through college. And so I wanted to give one of these types of essays every week. We started off with a lot of hand holding and scaffolding and support. We wrote it in class. And even with all of that support, my students just really struggled. The gaps were really high. and they were not on track to meet that bar by the end of the year. And so I had to give one of those essays every week. I was 23, single, and just poured myself fully into the work on weekends and holidays. It was not sustainable, but it was highly effective. Feedback is a research proven best practice. And so, just by brute force, right, I was able to really improve student outcomes. We had, over half of our students pass that year, 60 plus in the 3 years that I was teaching in that course. And by the last year, not a single student earned a one. But that was not a sustainable pathway, even though it really demonstrated for me just how powerful that type of feedback can be. And so what we do at Enlighten AI, which, to some degree I stumbled upon, I happened to be taking time off at the right time, and GPT-3 was released. I really wanted to imagine what it would look like for teachers to be able to deliver that level of rigor, that level of feedback without burning out. And so what our tool does is it actually learns from the teacher as they grade and give feedback, because they have the context of their classroom, the understanding of their rubrics, and most importantly, knowledge of their students. And so they're able to deliver that feedback in a way that is right for their classroom context. But doing that, is a difficult challenge. Having an AI that can assist and learn from you and adapt so that you're not having to edit or revise or just change out all of its feedback to make it effective. That was what we've been going for.
Amazing. Well, we'd love to have a look at it. Would you like to do a demo for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So we really offer 3 products. I'll demo 2 of them, I think, today. Maybe we'll get just enough time for the third. But we offer a grading assistant, a data-driven reteaching tool, and then an immediate feedback assistant. And so on our dashboard, we sync with Google Classroom. So if students are submitting their work through Google Classroom, that will sync and show up directly here with courses and rosters already set up, as you see with the Google Classroom icon. But I can also roster students directly in Enlighten AI by creating a class. And once I'm in one of these classes, I have a series of assignments that I'm able to grade. So I'll go over to an assignment that was one that we gave back at my school that I designed and led on the Stanford Prison experiment. And so I'll go over to this demo paragraph assignment and select to grade it. From here, teachers are able to create a rubric. If you've already trained the AI on this assignment for a different class, you can reuse your grading setup, or you can access an expert trained setup for some of the common exam style formats that we see. I'll go ahead and choose the rubric here. And let's just go ahead and demonstrate the rubric functionality by creating one. So I'll just AI generate a rubric. We'll call it Stanford Prison Experiment assignment. Stanford Prison Experiment. This was at an 8th grade level. Let's do 4 points per category. And students wrote a persuasive paragraph on the Stanford Prison Experiment. They should have a claim, 2 pieces of evidence, and 3 sentences or so of reasoning. So right now, the AI system is going to go ahead and develop this rubric in a format that is usable for us within Enlighten AI, but it's also going to transcribe that in such a way that it is editable by me. So this should take about 10 to 15 seconds. Here we go. So I've got a title here. I'll just title this Persuasive Paragraph on the Stanford Prison Experiment. It's given me my 4 points. It's developed some criteria for the claim, the evidence, including that it's 2 pieces of evidence, and then the reasoning. Let's see if it captured, yeah, reasoning and insightful. I said about 3 sentences, so I'm actually really glad that it did not hold me to that. This looks pretty good. So I'll save that. I'll input just a little bit of information about the task. So the question that students were asked here at an 8th grade level to write 1 paragraph was, did the Stanford Prison Experiment show that people are inherently bad? Heavy question. If I had supplied a text, I could copy and paste that here. I can also create an exemplar student response and then provide any special instructions to the AI any apply. So if that's, I want glows and grows, if that is to make sure that students have 3 sentences of reasoning at a minimum, we see all sorts of special instructions. It's like training your teacher's assistant and giving them the context of the assignment,
Right.
so that they can understand what it is that you are looking for in your classroom. So I'll save these and I'll start grading. The AI is going to take a naive attempt at scores and feedback for this student. So this is a fictional student, Bella Brave. We have some feedback that has been delivered, and then some draft scores. Now, this is really where the training process begins. As it says here, my AI is currently 0% trained, so it hasn't seen any validated examples of what it is that I'm looking for. And I can tell that because it has actually graded this a little bit more harshly than I would. And this is the strongest submission in the stack, so I'm actually going to improve all of the scores here to 4, and I'm able to change that as I wish. I won't have time to just go deep into this feedback. On first glance, it does look like it's exactly aligned with what I would be looking for. What I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to regenerate. So this is also like working with a TA, is now I've told it my scores, and it's actually going to say, well, oh, I didn't realize this is a perfect paper. And so let me align my feedback with your scores instead of you redrafting, the entire paragraph of feedback. I'll also add something here just so that you can see how it learns. It's difficult for us in this time period, but I have a way to sort of show this. So let's pretend that the student was asked to display their word count. I'm going to put PS, remember to include your word count. Now, obviously, I could provide commentary on the thesis, on the evidence, on the reasoning, but in our time, we will know that the AI is listening and learning from me if it is able to start placing this comment on papers that don't have a word count attached to it. So let's save and continue. And now on this new student submission for Jacob Jester, another fictional student, it is developing feedback as well as scores, and it's correctly identified that this submission is actually a lower scoring sample than the previous one. I think I would generally agree with this. Maybe it's a lower point for reasoning. And it's only 20% trained, so it takes about 5 examples for us to feel like it is fully accurate. As we can see, it hasn't yet picked up on this pattern of, yes, remember to include your word count. But as we progress, we'd inspect the feedback more closely if this was a real assignment.
Nice, remembered.
But yeah, we can see the evidence of learning where it has included to remember your word count. And of course, again, we can do this on much more rich, content-focused commentary, not just semantics like word count. But as we go and as we save these validated examples, it's like the teacher's assistant is learning from me, from my examples, and the more of these examples that it has over time, the better it's able to sort of mimic what it thinks I would produce, both in terms of the commentary and in terms of the scores. So there's just a couple of more here, and then I'll demonstrate the final sort of piece of this puzzle that we've just added and that we're excited to keep building. Great. So I've graded my students. If we had progressed, I could have shown you that there is a sort of paper handoff to the TA where the TA can then, once you feel confident in it, it can actually generate the remaining student scores and feedback and bring it back to you, within a matter of about a minute to review and approve the remaining student, scores and feedback. So you don't need to necessarily train and stream in, feedback by feedback. There's almost like a TA pass back. Now I've graded all my students. I would probably have 25 more names here. Maybe we've seen as many as 150, 200 sometimes coming in this list. I'm able to pass back the feedback in multiple ways. So I can post directly to Google Classroom. I can email students. I can generate individual PDF handouts, and I can do that in bulk for any or all of my students. Now, what we're really excited about is moving in a direction of supporting data-driven instruction. So this is a really time-consuming task for me when I was a teacher. Is now you've got a ton of data. I'm not I wasn't proficient, with spreadsheets back when I was teaching, and I certainly wouldn't have had time on any given evening to go and figure out exactly what was going on. I sort of took my best guess based on my quickest read. But what we can do now is basically process all of this feedback, all of these strengths and areas of growth that you've identified for your students, as well as this numerical data, and we can generate a reteaching resource. So what the AI is doing now is it's looking back at all of the feedback and scores that we've given. It's analyzing, the strengths and areas of growth. It's selecting samples of student work, and it's now identifying what the highest leverage reteaching area is and starting me off with a resource that I can use tomorrow in order to start closing gaps. And so
Amazing.
it's identified here that students struggle to select and integrate varied evidence to support their claims. And it's given me the beginnings of a warm-up activity that I can use where it looks like students are going to be supporting a claim with some sort of an evidence piece. And if I want to, I'm able to deploy a number of different reteaching sort of AI tools within this document to ready it for student use. So we have this create everything tool. I'll change this out for, I can make a lesson plan. I could change this to a multiple choice quiz. I'm able to generate text or a non-exemplar or exemplar or, another worksheet. Often we see teachers using the text generator here to add a text so that students are able to pull from a specific text in order to answer certain questions. So we're excited about this idea of facilitating data-driven instruction and not having teachers have to wrestle with a massive spreadsheet to uncover what it is that students need to work on. It's right there for me in the AI's analysis. I'll pause there. I'm not sure how we're doing on timing, but I'm happy to show you one other tool that we've got cooking up in the lab.
I really like that. We're looking at the next right step. I think Sal Khan uses that terminology of what's the next right step. And I think that those of us who've been in technology for a while and in education as well, we've been wanting for and waiting and dreaming of the opportunity when there could be automated responses to the students' data to enable them to get really fast feedback, a fast opportunity to build on their learning, identify their gaps, and have something in front of them that can guide them to that next level of achievement, so that there's not that delay that happens automatically when schools are only open for certain hours, classrooms are big, you only might be with a teacher for an hour, so you really don't get that personalized support. So this is brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things I loved in his book was he talks about, shooting free throws, I think is the example, or in basketball. It's like, the way that students sometimes produce work, we don't actually tell them if they made the shot until days later. And
Right.
then they get sort of minimal feedback to figure out how to fix it. And you've moved on to the next skill. So, we're really into this idea that students should have, all forms of feedback, and the teacher should be able to respond to that data. So I think of this as, the student has put forth their best effort in the game, and you've identified, what the skill gap was. So maybe it's making a left-handed layup. And now the next day when you come into practice, you need to know, well, I need to practice left-handed layups, and then you need the resource to be able to, run that exercise so that the student gets specific, deliberate practice on it. And so we're excited to, just keep building this out and facilitate that.
Let's jump into your lab baby that you have cooking up.
Sure. This one's actually younger than the other tool that I'll show you, but we sort of heard this desire from teachers for a few things. So one is certainly just lightening the load on assessment grading and making that more efficient, more informative, faster. Data-driven reteaching is another. And then there's this in-between for sort of low-stakes formative assessment where teachers really want students to be able to revise and resubmit their work with feedback, but oftentimes it's difficult for an AI to really capture the context that a teacher is focused on in their classroom. I know this was very true in my own. So we have this option now where any teacher can use Enlighten AI, and before there's sort of a traditional grading option where students submit their work and you can grade it just like I showed you. But we also now have this option for immediate AI feedback. And so I could take that same assignment and say, we've got a paragraph, and now I'm going to give students 3 attempts on the spot. And I'll assign it to some test classrooms. Let's just use that same rubric, and let's put that same question. Did the Stanford prison experiment show that people are inherently bad. I could generate a reference text if I was building this assignment from scratch. I could also generate the exemplar if I'd like. I won't do those right here. But I can also give specific instructions to my AI assistant on what to focus on. So I might say, be concise, give one strength, one area of growth with a suggestion and a question for the student to improve. Keep it to 4 or so sentences. Some teachers will go for glows and grows. I also have seen teachers say, I really want you to focus in on specific spelling mistakes. The context of your classroom is so important so that the AI feedback is not divorced from what is actually happening in the classroom. And the only thing that can tether those two, in our opinion, is the teacher. So the teacher's role here is invaluable. When I preview this, I can see exactly what this might look like from the student's angle. So you've got a question, and if I put a reference text, the student could take a look at that, and then I could input some sort of a answer here. So the Stanford, and let's make that spelling error. So this is a struggling response, and I'm not putting it, for any other reason than to see how is my AI assistant going to respond in this setting. And so when I click as a student to get this feedback, I'm getting that feedback, tuned and tailored the same way that I assigned it to be done. So it's given me, some concise feedback, a suggestion, and a prompt or a invitation to improve my response. I could continue to improve this and test that feedback. I can also go back and add more instructions so that my AI assistant, similar to a teacher's assistant, is well trained, prepared, ready to go in order to provide the feedback that I am looking for it to provide. Because there's so much that we can provide feedback for. And even the same assignment that you give in the fall versus the spring is very likely to be looked at differently because students should have progressed. And so even the same rubric, same task, it's really important that pedagogical context be infused into the feedback that students are receiving. So there's more updates coming to this in just the coming weeks as we've sort of experimented with it over the summer and some UX sessions with teachers. But we're excited to be able to provide feedback at every layer of sort of the teacher's workflow, and then also pair this with the same data-driven reteaching flow that you saw earlier.
And it's specifically for written language or social sciences rather than mathematics and other topics.
We see some cases of performance tasks in math and quite a few science teachers who are doing some form of written lab reports, or claim evidence and reasoning is extremely popular with science teachers. But yeah, primarily we see a lot of humanities and science teachers.
Right. And so if you were to look out in 1 year's time from now, with schools taking up AI and putting policies in place and really embedding it into teaching, learning, and assessment practices, what would you see a school looks like?
You said in what time frame?
1 year.
In 1 year. Maybe it's a bit of a contrarian answer. I don't know that schools and classrooms are going to look that drastically different in a year versus now. I think it will look pretty similar to last year, with a lot of different responses to AI. Some teachers moving to paper and pencil, some embracing it with tools like ours to improve their efficiency, others resorting to tools like GoGuardian around sort of integrity and academic honesty issues. So I think there will still be a variety of different responses in the next year. But if you were to ask me in the next 5 years, I really think that these tools are going to make teaching more effective and sustainable. And I say that as a really unique opportunity because I have not seen historically a single case where there's been a technology that doesn't just change the workflow for educators in a school context, but actually take something off of their plate without compromising the quality of the work.
Mm.
We just released a case study of a teacher of ours, who's been using our platform all year, and he writes, I had ways to save time. The issue wasn't saving time. It's that the thing that I had to do to save time was to take shortcuts that I really didn't want to take. And now the return on investment of my time is just so much higher. And so I think that is really what we'll see in the next 3 to 5 years is some of the initial fear of AI dissipates as folks figure out how they'll manage, sort of integrating AI for students while also ensuring that we don't lose core skills that we really want students to walk out of school with. And I don't think that the academic integrity issues that we see are fatal. It's just it's new, it's the bleeding edge. But I think in 3 to 5 years, we will see folks adapt in such a way that it's really enhancing the quality of what teachers are capable of and giving them superpowers in this way that really enhances instruction.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I agree with you. I don't think that things across the whole of education will be markedly different. I think that the majority will be still grappling with what are we going to do? How do we do it? Why should we do it? Should we even do this at all? All sorts of questions like that. So I completely agree with you that 5 years things will look different. And I like that you mentioned about quality. It's that opportunity for quality and the balance of time that teachers, we always make that decision that we're going to have to maybe cut some corners. And if we don't cut the corners or give less feedback, we're going to commit our holidays to doing all of the marking to make sure we do it with the quality that we really, really want to. So I love that quality is the center of your response there. Thank you for that. What's the best way, Gotham, for people to get hold of you to learn more about you or Enlighten AI?
Well, I'd love for them to reach out directly. Gotham at enlightenme.ai. Enlightenme.ai is also the site, but GAUTAM as a mother. And enlightenme.ai. I would love to chat with any teachers or educators who are thinking about similar problems.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Craig. Thanks for having me.